police, not the system demonstrate that it's the other way around. If a prisoner demonstrates that, then we're statutorily obliged to release them.
Nick Hardwick, he is chair of the Parole Board, giving evidence to the Justice Select Committee this morning. And millions of workers in the so-called gig economy are to receive new rights, including the enforcement of holiday and sick pay. The plans are part of the government's response to a far-reaching review of modern business practices by Matthew Taylor, the chief executive of the Royal Society of Arts. Ministers say they'll also crack down on employers who make unpaid interns do the jobs of workers, and will introduce a naming and shaming scheme for companies which fail to pay employment tribunal awards. Let's talk to Matthew Taylor then, who headed the review. Hannah Reid is here, she's from the TUC, and Sergio Ramos is a Deliveroo worker and also a member of the IWGB union. Welcome, all of you. First of all, Sergio, your reaction?
Get sick paid and get holidays, that's a great thing for anyone. As I have got children that help me to be with them a little bit, but few days in a year. We expected the companies to look after us as well, and not just like, you're a contractor, and then they can finish contract anywhere, anytime. You can have some hours to work this week, maybe next week not. These things make we a bit tense when you have family, when you have a life to carry on.
So it's good news?
It's a good news, yeah. That we have holiday, that we have this kind of security, that's a good news.
Okay. Matthew Taylor, you must be very pleased.
Well, I am pleased, but I'm afraid I've got bad news for Sergio, which is I don't think what the government's announced is going to give you holiday and sickness pay. And that's because we need to distinguish two issues here.
Okay.
One is the government is talking about enhancing and underlining holiday and sick pay for casual workers of a whole variety of kinds. But there's still the issue of people who are self-employed. And what the government is consulting on is the question of whether workers like yourself are classified as self-employed or classified as workers. As long as you're classified as self-employed, you won't have many employment rights. And so there's two issues here. One is the rights of casual workers, and the other is whether or not people like Sergio are seen as casual workers, which I think they probably should be, or self-employed, which is what the company would rather refer to you as, because that means they pay less tax.
Yes, exactly.
So that will come out of the consultation?
Yes, so the government is consulting today. It recognises the principle, which was in my review, of the need to clarify employment status, to have clearer lines, because at the moment companies like Uber and Deliveroo keep going to the courts, it bounces backwards and forwards. Can we make the law clearer? And I hope they will act on that, but as I'm sure Hannah will recognise, because this is the TUC's position, I think it is a complex issue and we need to get it right, because whilst it's important that people like Sergio have more rights, there's also dangers when you reclassify employment rights that you, for example, encourage some employers to lower people's thresholds.
Yeah, go on, Hannah.
Well, the TUC recognises that this is a baby step forward. There are some welcome measures from the government's announcements today on better enforcement on issues such as sick pay and holiday pay. But really, we believe that this is a missed opportunity and it doesn't take the large step forward that working people need, such as Sergio today. There's nothing in the government's proposals that will end the hire and fire culture of zero-hours contracts. There's nothing that will guarantee workers such as Sergio guaranteed hours so he will know how much pay he's taking home at the end of the week. There's nothing really that will prevent sham self-employment arrangements. And also our concern is that there's nothing here that will help the at least 1.8 million working people who lose out on key protections in the workplace, family-friendly rights, issues such as redundancy pay.
I think that's too gloomy a picture. There's some very important measures announced today. Making clear the entitlement to holiday pay and also bringing sick pay entitlement to casual workers, making sure that those workers get a clear statement on day one of their rights, their terms and conditions, their employment status, because a lot of people who work in that part of the economy aren't aware of their rights and they don't exercise them. A requirement that large companies are more transparent about the way in which they use other companies in their supply chain whose practices might not be so good. But there are other areas where the government is continuing to consult, and I think it's important. I don't agree that this is baby steps. I think it's a significant shift, actually, particularly coming from a Conservative government. But there are areas where we're going to need to maintain the momentum.
And Matthew is right. Transparency in the workplace is important. People need information about what their pay and conditions are, and the government has made some announcements in this area. We also welcome the fact that they're going to consult on ending the undercutters charter, as we call it, which is a loophole in the law at the moment that means that agency workers can get paid far less per hour for doing exactly the same job as a permanent member of staff sitting alongside them. It's welcome that they've listened to Matthew's recommendation in that area and union campaigns. But having said that, the overall package that the government's announced today will not really change the balance of power in the workplace. And we believe we need a new balance of power for a modern workplace to make sure that flexibility cuts both ways. Workers shouldn't have to bear all the risk in the workplace and employers get all the benefits. So we're asking the government to think again and be a bit more ambitious.
I can tell you there is basically two kinds of people that work for these companies. The people that work full-time, like me. In this case, if I work full-time for one company, I'm not anymore a self-employed or I'm contractual. I can be a contract, but I work just for them.
And do they classify you as self-employed, or do they classify you as a worker?
I cannot classify myself because I have to go under whatever they say. I'm looking for a job, whatever
So I think
they
they'll
offer
probably
me.
still say you're self-employed, which means you won't get these rights.
Exactly.
And that's why I think we need to clarify.
And then, if you don't accept, don't get the job.
Yeah.
And this is not good. Another people is the ones that they have a job in the daytime. And they say, oh, I'm going to make extra money. These guys, they're going to say, I love the gig economy because I love to go when I want, when I can get on the busy time, when I get money, drop payments is fine for me. But these people, they have a job in the daytime. And then they do this as an extra job.
I think this, Sergio, is absolutely right. And when Hannah talks about 1.8 million workers, it's important to understand that a lot of those people working in those ways choose to work in those ways and think that works for them. It doesn't mean we shouldn't try to enhance their rights. But it works for some people, it doesn't work for others, and the law's got to be better.
I'm going to pause it there.
Yeah.
But thank you. Thank you very much, Sergio. Sergio Ramos, Matthew Taylor and Hannah Reid. Thank you very much for coming in. Thank you. Let's bring you more on the news that one of the killers of the toddler, James Bulger, John Venable,